athletic training in Kansas. If you know Brad, like I know Brad, you know he is a humble servant who is incredibly uncomfortable at the moment with the attention that he is getting. But he wouldn't hesitate to help any other human any way that he can. He just doesn't want anybody to make a fuss about it. He has gone quietly about serving the profession and literally tens of thousands of athletes for nearly 40 years in Northeast Kansas. It is time that we make a fuss about Brad for a few minutes. Undeniably, his butterfly effect can be seen in our profession, in his patients, in his coworkers, and in many of us here today. My life as an athlete, and ultimately as a professional, is a direct result of Brad's butterfly effect. I first met Brad, sorry to age us both, but as an awkward middle school athlete with knee pain. He was so kind to that scared sixth grader and the ultimate professional, even though now that I look back a few years later, I was probably a pain in your ear and probably being a bit of a baby. But that day, I realized that you could blend healthcare and athletics into a job, and my mind was blown. He was the first athletic trainer I met, and he inspired me to pursue this amazing career. And he's answered tons of questions for me through the years, through high school, college, and even later as I took over as CAPS president. He has always been someone I look up to, both as an athletic trainer, but honestly also as a great human. It is clear his kindness and professionalism has butterflied, and I'm not sure that's a word, but I'm going to use it. As indicated by the number of athletic trainers, athletic directors, former athletes, parents, administrators, you name it, who commented on the social media posts about his Hall of Fame induction, but also his upcoming much-deserved retirement. And none of that, I don't think you could see, Brad, because you didn't have social media. But I highly suggest that at some point you sit down with your family and you look through those comments, because it'll humble you to know that even though you spent so many years trying to remain behind the scenes, everyone is giving you a standing ovation now for everything you've done for them. Brad's butterfly wings not only changed my professional life, but I look around this room tonight and I see so many athletic trainers from Kansas who have similar stories. Whether it's Mark Padfield, former CAPS president, who tells a story about how Brad convinced him to go back to school to become an athletic trainer, or Caitlin Truey, who's CAPS president-elect, who was one of his athletic training student aides at Washburn Rural. Almost every AT in Eastern Kansas that you talk to has a story about how Brad has impacted them both professionally but also personally. So Brad, thank you so much for all your dedication and service to the profession. You've inspired so many athletic trainers and touched so many lives that your butterfly effect will live on for a very long time. And with that, it is my absolute honor to introduce 2024 Maata Hall of Fame inductee, Brad Perry.
I first want to thank Karen. She really spearheaded the effort for my induction into the Maata Hall of Fame. I want to thank Karen for all her hard work and her efforts in this process on my behalf. I'd also like to thank Maata and the Honors and Award Committee for their consideration and for this very special honor. First and foremost, I want to thank my wife, Susan. We will be celebrating 45 years of marriage in June. As we have gone through this life together, we have both worked, Susan as an oncology nurse, me as an athletic trainer, working lots of hours. As we raised our two daughters, and now moving into being grandparents, I think overall we've really done a pretty good team and have worked together well. But make no mistake, there was one team captain on that team, and that was my wife, Susan. The bottom line is I can't imagine going through this journey without Susan being by my side these last 45 years. Thank you, Susan. I also want to give a big thank you to Continuity Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and their physicians for their support of our high school outreach program all of these years. I particularly want to thank my boss, Michael Ramirez, who is our Director of Rehabilitation Services. Michael is also an athletic trainer. And I've appreciated his direction and guidance over these years. It has been really great having someone with intimate knowledge of what we do to help us as he supported us and guided us as we move forward. As the coordinator of our outreach program, I've been blessed the last 10 years with an athletic training staff that makes my job very easy. Mike Longhofer, Mike Flynn, Todd Gaddis, and Austin Dodds are not only great athletic trainers who are great to work with, but they're also really good friends and have made it a very special place to work over the last decade. 26 years ago, I had the honor of being here at this banquet to introduce John Baxter, the longtime athletic trainer at Emporia State University, as he was being inducted into the Maata Hall of Fame. When I graduated high school, I was really struggling trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. To say that I was a rudderless ship would be an understatement. I tried college for a semester, didn't work out too well. In fact, I don't think I was invited back for the spring semester. I then worked for 2.5 years, and at that point I decided I really wanted to give college another try. I had a good friend that had gone to school and studied athletic training, told me a little bit about the profession, and it sounded interesting to me. At that point, I'd already decided to attend Emporia State University. In the spring, before I was going to enroll in the fall, I went to a new student visit at Emporia State. And while I was on that visit, I asked if they had any kind of athletic training program at Emporia. That afternoon, I met John Baxter for the first time. As I sat across from John that day, I had no experience, hardly knew what an athletic trainer was or did, and had no idea what I would need to do education to become an ATC. Now, it probably helped that I do believe I was the only student that year that had inquired about the athletic training program in Emporia. But for some reason, John took me on as a student athletic trainer the next fall. And it didn't take long for me to fall in love with this profession. John passed away a number of years ago. I was so very fortunate to have walked into his office that day, and I will forever be grateful for all that he did for me. The day that I introduced John for his induction, I never dreamed that I would someday have the opportunity to join him in this Hall of Fame. I find it extremely humbling to be included in this group with him and the other great athletic trainers that have been inducted over these many years. As Karen mentioned, I'll be retiring in a few months. As my career winds down, I've kind of thought about where we started with our outreach program many years ago and compared it to where we are today. Back in the mid-'80s, I believe the only athletic trainer in Topeka at that time was Steve Ice, who was the longtime athletic trainer at Washburn. In fact, Steve said he really knew most of the area high school coaches because they were constantly bringing athletes in for him to see and evaluate. When we started the outreach program in Topeka in 1986, we had 2 athletic trainers on staff that worked with all our schools, and we did that for a number of years, working with all those schools in that program. And now we fast forward to today. Now we have 5 full-time athletic trainers on staff working in our outreach program. We have another 4 that help us out on a PRN basis with game coverage. We have 2 athletic trainers that are in administrative positions. We have 3 or 4 ATCs that work in the office as physician extenders with our doctors. And we also help supply 2 athletic trainers to Washburn University. And this is just in our little corner of the world. I'm sure we are seeing growth like that all across the nation. I don't think I've ever been as optimistic about our profession as I am now. It's not to say that we don't have issues, but the bottom line is our services are more in demand now than any time that I can remember. I think it's going to be very exciting to be involved in this great profession over the next decade or 2, to the point I'm a little sad I'm bowing out at this point, but I need to start my new chapter in my life trying to see just how bad I can get at golf. I was so very fortunate that I got into the profession. Outside of some long days covering wrestling meets, I loved every minute of it. Thanks again to Matt and the Honors and Awards Committee for this very special honor, and thank you.
Thank you, Karen and Correct. Congratulations, Brad. Next up, if Mark and Abby want to make their way to the stage. Mark was nominated by Karen Fennell, and he'll be introduced tonight by his daughter, Abby. I'm not going to read anything from Mark's application, but I do want to tell a story. Brad just alluded to it, but many of us, in order to have work-life balance as athletic trainers, are fortunate to be able to include our families in what we do. I have a quick story before Abby introduces her dad. Many years ago, Abby, I think, was in 6th grade, and she was about this tall. She sat down tonight, I'm like, does Mark have another daughter? I walked into the speaker-ready administrative room, whatever it's called. I like to do that when I got into the hotel, just to chat with Mark and see if he needed help with anything. So I walked in and said, hey, Mark, do you need me to do anything? Do you have any errands or anything that you need me to run? And he was busy wrapping up all of his duties, getting ready for the meeting to start that evening. And there's this young girl sitting at the table. And he said, yeah, I could use some help. I need you to run the Staples for some office supplies. I said, sure, no problem. Give me the credit card. Give me the Maata credit card. That was his first mistake. Second, I said, I tell you what, why don't I take your daughter along with me? I figured they both needed a break from each other because they'd been in that little room for hours. And Mark said, yes, absolutely. So reluctantly, on her part, Abby and I took off for adventure in Omaha with credit card in hand. One thing led to another, and we were gone for about 3 hours. Staples is like 5 blocks. We stopped for coffee. We stopped for donuts. We stopped for Staples. We got some duct tape. We cruised around Omaha in the Central College car. I think I even offered to let her drive. We finally returned to the little speaker-ready room with a box of Staples and a roll of tape, $7 total. Abby was on a sugar high, and I had a $100 credit card receipt. I don't know if Abby remembers all that, but I certainly cherish that memory, because Mark has never let me forget that I had no receipts for the credit card that day. Great story, engaging families with what we do. It was lovely. So here to introduce Mark is his daughter, Abby.
Good evening. My name is Abby Stutz, and I'm going to be introducing my favorite athletic trainer, my dad, Mark Stutz. A lot of you know him for the work that he's done on different committees, as a clinical coordinator, and as a professor, and as your own athletic trainer. I know him as the guy that taught me how to tape an ankle at the age of 5, who brought me along to classes with him, who dropped me off for dance lessons, and coached my soccer team. He never missed an activity between all of his different obligations for Maata and school. Over time, I went from observing him treat other athletes to being the one being treated, as I began playing sports more competitively. It was pretty convenient to have my own personal athletic trainer whenever I got hurt. I think the thing I heard most commonly was, "It hurts? Did you try icing it?" I believe that is every athletic trainer's favorite thing to ask an athlete. He became the honorary athletic trainer for every team I was on. Anytime someone was possibly injured, the first thing they asked was, "Abby, where's your dad?" My dad is a great athletic trainer. I think the thing that sets him apart is how you can see his love, compassion, and service to others, and how he treats everyone around him. He has been a great example to me and those around him, and challenges us to strive to show those same traits to everyone else every day. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Hall of Fame member, Dr. Mark Stutz.
Thank you, Abby. What John failed to tell you is it was a Prius from Central College. The words were, "Abby, what happened in the Prius stays in the Prius." True story. What was I thinking? And what he didn't say, Frank was with him, Frank knew, and someone said, "Why did you let your daughter go with John and Frank?" And I was like, yeah, I don't know. She turned out pretty good. We didn't screw up too bad. So,
Thank you for the standing ovation. Thank you for the warm welcome. Abby, thank you. That was an amazing introduction. I also want to just briefly, quickly thank Kyle and Jennifer, Scott, Sam, Jessica, and everyone else that put the meeting together this year. I've worked with them for many years, and it takes a lot of work, and so good job, and really appreciate it. Also, I want to thank the Honors and Awards Committee, the Hall of Fame Committee, and the MATA Executive Board for bestowing this honor on me tonight. I want to especially thank Karen Fennell for nominating me, and those who wrote letters of recommendation for me as well. I'm appreciative of that. To know that I'm going into the Hall of Fame with the likes of Ray Gardner, George Sullivan, Lynn Bott, Randy Biggerstaff, and the rest of the members is humbling to me, to say the least. I also want to thank those that came to be with me this evening. My wife Jill, our daughter Abby, who you met, our friend Miss St. Bonrant from Memphis, Jill's parents Craig and Connie, and her uncle Larry and Aunt Kay. Jill's brother Gern, his wife Cindy, their daughters Hannah, Hope, Haley, and Haley's husband Jared. Jason Endrud and Mitch Kurtenbach are at our table as well from Nebraska Wesleyan, and Jared Gallup and Dawson Schwerfeger from Nebraska Wesleyan. They were some of my wrestlers. I did wrestling athletic training for the last 5 years there while I was there. So I want to thank them for being here as well. To Brad, congratulations. It's an honor to be inducted with you tonight. I appreciate your leadership, your friendship, and volunteer attitude which you exhibited throughout your career. I wish you happy and healthy retirement. And to Doug, congratulations. I'm grateful to God for putting you in my life. You are the best clinician I know. And your dedication to your patients, your family, your friends, and your profession are unmatched. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do for me. I'm very proud to call you my friend and extend to you my heartfelt congratulations on your induction. And while I'd like to thank everybody here by name, we're given 8 minutes. So it would be impossible to do that. But I might even forgot people. You can see, I think I have the record for the longest thank you slide. So, but my first MATA meeting was March 1988 in Lincoln. Our meeting was there almost every year. Lincoln used to have a hotel at 33rd and Holdridge. It's still there, but it's a residence hall now. And that's where my first meeting was. I would have never thought that this many years later, I'm actually being inducted in the Hall of Fame. So it would be impossible to thank everybody, but I would like just to take the opportunity for everyone to know that I am forever grateful for those who mentored me, supported me, prayed for me, invested in me throughout my life and my career. Please know that I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'm glad that you're here tonight to join me in this celebration. And if you didn't know, I actually should have gotten this last year, and I'll tell you why. I got the Kansas Athletic Trainers Society Athletic Trainer of the year that I left Kansas for Nebraska. I got an award from Fort Hays State University the year I was leaving to go to Baker University. Those of you that don't know, I actually live now in Memphis, Tennessee, and I left, so I should have gotten the award last year. So someone told me I need to move one more time, and maybe I'll be in the NATA Hall. But anyhow, I'd like you to drop by, say hi afterwards, and take a photo because I thought last year was the last time I was going to come to meetings, so now it's definitely could be this year. So please come by afterwards, say hi, and get a picture with me. I really appreciate it. I've divided my speech into 4 sections, and they're short. But I'd like to look back a little bit. I'd like to thank a few more people, share some lessons that I've learned, and then leave you with a challenge. Somehow my page is They didn't. I've just been writing on it since I've been sitting there, so you're waiting on it. Okay. I love athletic training. I've been doing it since 8th grade. That's a long time. I started as a manager for a junior high football team, and at the same time, for the high school football team, our games were on Fridays, and at 4, and then our high school games were at like 7:30. So my mom or dad, whoever had the chauffeur duty, would come get me. They'd have a meal for me, they'd have a different shirt to change into, and then they'd drop me at the football stadium for the high school game. I started out at high school, I was the one that carried the cord. And yes, I did get ran over one time, and my mom was looking for me, and I was underneath like 5 people. But I didn't get injured, luckily. And then the next year, I was not doing the cord. I did learn a lot of new words that first year. My mom told me to not repeat anything that I heard, so I did not. As I went on to high school, I had a very supportive athletic director in high school, so I went to the Kramer camps, went to the basic one, the advanced one, and I was the athletic trainer for our high school. I did all the sports. I was there all the time. I actually had a faculty parking pass. I actually had a spot to park, and I actually had keys to my school and the alarm code. And this is in Denver, Colorado, so I mean, this is not like some little town. This isn't a big city, and so obviously the athletic director had a lot of trust in me, and I never violated that trust. I went on to a couple of years at William Penn, and that's where I met the Lord. I also met my wife, but then after 2 short years, I transferred to Lockheed University in Pennsylvania. David J. Massey was the program director. He's a great mentor of mine. Unfortunately, within a year of retiring, he developed thyroid cancer and did not survive. So that was tough on all of us. My education at Lockhaven was fantastic. We were one of the only 11 programs in the country at the time in the 80s that was accredited, and it was fantastic. My rehab class was a PTATC that had gone to Lockhaven and came back and was teaching there, and now she's a world-renowned researcher at USC. The other educators were just fantastic. Over the years, I really had a lot of opportunities. I basically worked at D1, D2, D3, NAI, junior college, high schools, clinics, and also the Olympic Training Center. I really cherish those memories, all the coworkers, all the patients, the places, the experiences, the injuries, all that. I still remember many of the people's names who I treated even 30-some years ago. I'll tell you what though, nothing has given me more satisfaction than helping a patient return to play or work or normal daily activities after successful rehabilitation programs, especially going from injury to full recovery. And I think all of us in the room can probably agree with that. As far as the service side of things, I've had the opportunity to serve the BOC, CATS, MATA, the CADI, a lot of community organizations, and much more. Those experiences have enriched my life as I've been given the opportunity to serve. I love to serve others. I believe service is important. I would go as far as to say service is my love language, and if I can encourage you to do one thing, look for opportunities to serve. Whether it's at work or in your community or in the profession, serve. And now for time for thanks. First and foremost, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for being my best friend, for giving me the passion for people, and for making me a very skilled athletic trainer. Next, I want to thank my wife, Jill. God knew what He's doing when He chose you for me. You are my best friend on the earth, my strength when I can't do it myself, my brother when I lose my way, my confidant, my comedic relief, my biggest cheerleader, and someone that makes me a better man. In short, I'm married up. Thank you all for thank you for all the times you sat on the sidelines with me when we were first married. First time someone said Mrs. Stutz, she looked around for my mom. I said, they're talking to you. All the times you sat in rain and cold weather, especially with Gary Savanas at the KU games. They went to K-State and it was raining. They went to Nebraska. I remember singing Gurn, we're in Nebraska, it was raining, singing Pregnant, and now Jill will not go sit in the rain or anything, but she did then to watch me and to cheer me on, which was amazing. I just am grateful for all you've done and continue to do for Abby and me. I thank God for you on a daily basis, and I love you. To Abby, your mother and I are very proud of you. You have grown into a beautiful young woman who loves the Lord and loves people. Thank you for your love and support the past 24 years. To my parents, Bob Stutz and Barbara Stutz, while my dad is no longer with us and my mother is watching at home in snowy Colorado, they got over a foot of snow. I just want to tell them thank you for all their support from 8th grade to now. Thank you for picking me up, feeding me, letting me go halfway across the country to college. To my brothers, Matt, Steve, Andy, my sister Bill, and their families, I know you're not able to be here tonight in person, but I want to thank you for your love and support over the years. I love you all. To my second family, the Constables, I love each and every one of you. Thank you for welcoming me into your family over 32 years ago, and thank you for being here tonight. To Brian and Sam Bondurant, we consider you family. Miss Sam, thank you for being here tonight. Brian, we miss you and wish you were here. To John and Diane Bartholomew, we have been like family for over 30 years. The three of us were at different community colleges in Kansas, and that's where we first met. Thank you for your friendship, love, and wise counsel. You're both very special to me. I'll forever be grateful for God for our friendship all these years. And I have so many more people to thank, so please read my slides, as I don't have enough time for that. And yes, I did put my dogs on there. And now I'd like to share some lessons I've learned over my career. I've had the opportunity to meet and work with thousands of healthcare professionals, mainly athletic trainers, but many others, coaches, administrators, faculty, colleagues, student athletes, patients, parents, athletic training students, etc. I've learned a lot. For example, my parents taught me to finish what I started and to leave things better than when I found them. I like to think that I have. From my family, I've learned that they have my back, and when we stick together, anything is possible. From my students, who many of them, former students, are here tonight and back here and other tables, I learned not to take myself too seriously, which means you might find me saying things like, "My bad," and "You really slayed that." Is Aubrey here? That's for Aubrey. Okay. From my colleagues, I have learned more things than I have time to share, but one of these is to view things from a different perspective before making a decision. From my life experiences, I've learned I am not perfect and I've made mistakes. But I've also learned that it's important to own my mistakes and learn from them. Life has also taught me that I sometimes I need to apologize, and I think that's pretty hard to admit. But it isn't always a pleasant thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. It's an important part of life, of doing life with others. And finally, from all of my experience, I've learned a life of service is a rewarding way to live. I would not change any of it. My final theme is legacy. What is going to be your legacy as a healthcare professional? Or asking it a different way, where are you going to serve? What are you going to do to make a difference at your place of work, your profession, and in your community? Whatever you do, make sure there's a balance in everything you do. I never have done anything to get awards or bring attention to myself, so this is pretty humbling to be here. I do them because it's the right thing to do, and because I was called by God to be an athletic trainer, an educator, an involved member of professional associations. While all these things are good, when it comes down to it, I hope I'm remembered as someone that loved God, loved his family, his friends, and put God, his family, and others before himself. That's my legacy. Thank you again for this honor, Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Let's go, bro.
Thank you, Abby, and congratulations, Mark. All right, I told you before my notes are kind of out of sorts here. Doug West was nominated by Nate Newman, and he'll be introduced tonight by Mark Copley. In his letter of support for Doug, Nate made reference to 3 specific areas of Doug's contributions. The first one was service and leadership. He said, "This is the strongest area that I can speak of regarding Doug's work over the last 3 decades in the profession. Doug has served in a variety of roles at the state and district level and impacted our profession in a variety of ways. His work as Iowa president was particularly noteworthy as he pushed through the latest update of our Practice Act in the early 2000s. Regarding education, Doug did a great job teaching and impacted many students at Coe College, University of Iowa, St. Ambrose University, and Central College. Doug's impact on the profession increased exponentially by educating numerous future athletic trainers. Regarding patient care, Doug always aimed to provide patient-centered care before it was a popular term. Please welcome to the stage Mark Coberly and Doug West.
You've heard the word selfless used a lot tonight. My definition of selfless professional is someone who's willing to do the work in the best interest of others without expecting any type of recognition whatsoever. In my opinion, this is Doug West. It's been my honor to have known Doug for nearly 25 years, and Doug exemplifies the definition of selflessness. Throughout his career, he's dedicated himself to his profession, his employers, his athletes, and his students. And as long as I've known him, he's done whatever it takes to get the job done, and done so without anybody else knowing about it, and never really looked for recognition. His only objective was to make sure everybody else was taken care of. During Doug's time on the Maata Executive Board, as John said, he was also our annual meeting coordinator, and he was really an integral part of the growth of this Maata meeting to where we were getting a bigger percentage of members than every other district in the country during the time when he was organizing the meeting. And that was quite impressive. And he spent a significant amount of ways of exploring how to make the meeting kind of what it is today. I vividly remember Doug and Mark arranging to have hard copies of presentations for those of you that are students. They had presentations actually on paper at one point. I remember them scrambling at night because people didn't turn in their presentations on time, making photocopies late into the evening, all the way to the wee hours in the morning, just so they could have their presentations the next day. And the members would never have known that, but those of us that saw them doing that surely appreciated that, and I always respected that about Doug, going above and beyond the call. He's been a model example of advocacy for our profession. As they said, as president of IAS, Doug really led the charge and got past the current Iowa athletic training licensure law. He protected the profession against others who were trying to defeat the Practice Act, and testified publicly in some pretty contentious meetings at the State House with some of our opponents to our bill, always trying to protect the profession and do what was best for athletic trainers in the state of Iowa. His selflessness and dedication to the advancement of our profession has been recognized with induction to the IATS Hall of Honor, the NATA Most Distinguished Athletic Trainer Award, the NATA Assistant Athletic Trainer of the Year Award, has been nominated and honored both by the University of Iowa and the Northern Iowa. But really more importantly to me, we've had many discussions between the two of us about the importance of family and the challenges our profession presents. What I really admire most about Doug above all is his dedication and support to his family. If you've ever had the pleasure to see Doug supporting his family at events like I have, and the events they're involved in, you can see what a priority family is to him, and really is one of the things I most admire about Doug. So it's without doubt that Doug West deserves this honor tonight, and it's my great pleasure to introduce him for induction into the Maata Hall of Fame class of 2024.
place in the middle. So, thank you, Maata Awards and Honors Committee, Maata BOD, Maata members. Congrats to Mark. Congrats to Mark. Congrats to Brad. Obviously, Mark and I spent a lot of time together in the workroom. It's probably where we both felt most comfortable. And I always do, part of the reason I think the meeting always went well is I knew that if I had an unanswered question, Brad was gonna probably ask it, and I was gonna have a good answer because he would want a solid answer. So I always respected both of them very much, and both very helpful in driving us to be better at what we do. I have 3 areas I'd like to kind of focus on. I'm gonna kind of talk about what I'm kind of most proud of, kind of what I failed, things that we have not achieved yet that I had as a priority, and then maybe some solutions. So some of the things that I'm most proud of, I think I asked John Roseland in about 2002 or 4, how do I get involved? And he told me they needed a president-elect. And I go, what's that? And well, basically you sit around for a year, you don't do anything, and then you run everything. And I go, okay, how hard could that be, right? You got a year to get ready, and then you just do things. He left out a couple details. So one detail was we were opening our Title Protection Act to move it to practice protection. And that means, as Greg Gardner said, everyone, once you open your act, everyone can have heyday with it. So that was a big deal. So things went really, really well, and I got some things. I wish I could tell you the backstories of how things really get done, but there's just not time for that. So if you're bored later and you want to listen to me, I'll give you the backstories. So the AT Title Act went through, but it doesn't ever happen by yourself. Mark's given me far too much credit. Mark Coberly was instrumental in that role. He was in charge of the licensure committee. He was also the president-elect at the time. And we didn't want to interrupt that, so then I stayed as president one more term. He stayed as president-elect one more term to make things work. Jim Nesper was a very instrumental leader for us. He's also a physical therapist, so him being on the AT side was huge for us. For those of you that have come in contact with Dr. Danny T. Foster, the calmest, coolest, most collected guy, and probably the smartest guy in any room that he's ever in. Without Jim Carney and Jenny Tyler, none of this would have gotten done. They're tremendous supporters of us, and they do an outstanding job. The second thing that I didn't know was going to happen was Iowa. We were at a time when each state would take a year and run the annual meeting. So it was also going to be Iowa's turn to run the annual meeting. I didn't think I could give that to other people. So trying to get a law done, trying to run an annual meeting. I'd never run a state meeting. I've taught some classes, but I really haven't done a whole lot of anything else. Toss me that bottle of water. Sorry. Brad and Mark would have done such great jobs, I don't think I'd be as nervous as I am. So we kind of took it over, and there's a lot of things that took place. So obviously Doug Long, I just kind of adopted what he did. And he had great building blocks there, so it was fortunate that I could steal a lot of his stuff. But without people like Barb Rodemaker, Mark Stutz, Scott Winslow, Michelle Paget, Diane Bartholomew, Brian Hughes, and several others, and also the willingness of the board of directors to try some things. I had some different ideas on things, and I don't think they were always the most popular ideas when I first brought them up. But I would kind of just keep bringing them up, and at some point they would say, let's just give it a shot. What's the worst thing that can happen? It doesn't work, and then we don't do it again. So I think Ron Walker was a big person on trying to get some of these ideas through. I am proud of the patients I've served. I've always seen myself as I am there to serve the patient. Probably gets me in trouble with my coaches because my priority is not their success, it's the student athlete's success. And I think we should call them patients. We shouldn't call them student athletes, shouldn't call them athletes, we should call them patients. We're healthcare providers, and we should call them patients. Another thing that I'm very happy of I'm kind of proud of that the amount of support that I've had from the University of Iowa to try to keep my skills honed and to develop any skill that I basically wanted to. So without people like Terry Noonan that supported me in that, and Jenny Serter, without having Director of Athletic Training support you in that, it doesn't happen. So I thank you for those two people and the University of Iowa to allow me to build my toolbox. I'm immensely satisfied and enjoy working with ATs, medical professionals, and physicians. I appreciate all your conversations. I appreciate your honesty, your genuine love, and support in all the different venues I've worked in: education, teaching, and service. So maybe some things that we haven't done. I don't know what people mean by work-life balance, and I don't think it's just our profession. It's almost any profession. If you're dedicated, it's going to be very tough to have that work-life balance. But we do need to get better. It's not going to be an organization that's going to change it for you. You're going to have to stand up for yourself. And I know that I have failed myself, and I've failed our profession to stand up for ourselves. And it may take telling a coach that, and the patient, sorry, I'm not going to work that event. I'm not going to cover that. It's too short of notice. Because we can have better schedules, and you can think about things. I'm not talking about weather changes. I'm just talking about the courtesy to bring things up. Hey, we're going to change this. It's 2 days away. Great, let's cover it. Hey, we're going to change this and it's 2 hours away. Sorry, I got plans. We need to be able to stand up and stand up for ourselves. If we haven't learned anything, who else is going to do it if we don't stand up for ourselves? And we got to start doing that. I got to do a better job. I encourage you all to do a better job. We need to continue to be the experts in athletic and active healthcare, but we should not limit our populations. We need to remove all implications that we can only treat athletes. We can treat anyone. We don't own anything. Patients should have the decision to go to whoever they want to. I have a great friend, Rob Knatzer, in Reno, Nevada. He owns a gym, he's an athletic trainer, and he has people that have workplace injuries, and because of what he does and how he uses the functional movement screen, they ask to do their rehab and return to work through him. And when the patient asks for it and the insurance company can't come up with a good reason not to do it, it happens. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of things we can take advantage of. All right, some solutions. So people in my athletic training room, I call them Dougisms. That's kind of, hey, I know it might be a little off, but just please do it my way. I'll give you a dissertation if you want it, or you can just do it the way I'm asking you to do it. I do think language matters. I already kind of referenced this. I said we need to be able to say no, and I think we got to be intentional with our words and our language. We need to say that we work in an athletic training facility or clinic, not the athletic training room. I went down last fall and visited Dan Newman and Mike Patterson, and they're in big high schools, but it's far more than a room with a lot of things going on. And every room is probably broken up into several other areas, even if it is one room. So I think we need to be intentional with that. I think we should call the people we work with partners, colleagues, healthcare providers, and athletic trainers, not trainers. We're getting a lot of help. Some of you are probably young enough that they would just call us the trainers, and we're getting a lot of help with a lot of the media people, but that's because of relationships that people like Mark Coberly have built with influential people, and it's people in the NFL that have very positive relationships, and they can talk to the press people and get that through. Language matters. I think we need to continue to think how we best educate our young professionals. There are so many jobs, and when you step into your job, you're going to be expected to be fully functional on day one. I thought about this in 2000, whenever it was, where we knew we were going to go to master's level education, but we hadn't formally said it yet. And I'm frustrated with myself that I didn't say, what if we had, you go through and you do your education. Well, there was a 4-year education, like Hope College had, or a 2-year education that most master's programs have now. But at the end of that, you are certified. You take a test, you're certified, and then you go do a year-long residency, or call it whatever you want. Doug, that kind of sounds like a doctor. We don't have to change it, because we can change it and call it whatever we want, but I think that is what would best serve our patients and us as professionals. And it may be something we want to think about so that we can better serve ourselves and our patients. I don't know if we can be experts in every area, but I think we got to hone the areas where we want to be experts. So whether we revisit having certifications in certain areas, I believe, and I think every athletic trainer that works in a setting, most student athletes, they will go to the sports psychologist, but they also relate to you as, I want to go to that person because they know what I'm going through. And they confide a lot of things in us. So that could be a track that we take on. If social workers can provide mental health, I think athletic trainers can provide mental health. So maybe that's an area of expertise that we could establish. I think there's a lot of other things: manual therapy, emergency preparation, sports science, rehabilitation, reconditioning, industrial, administration, and mentorship. Thank yous. Got a few. So I thank Terry Noonan for not hiring me as a graduate student when I came up and sat in his office, because that forced me to go to Western Michigan. He wasn't gonna hire me because I couldn't sit for the exam. So a long, long time ago, you hear about people talk about the internship route, and I couldn't even sit for the test out of my undergrad because anatomy and kinesiology was a joint class, and that had to be a separate class. So I started my graduate education at an approved curriculum, Western Michigan, and I wasn't certified working at a junior college. I learned a lot because you had to learn. You had to figure it out. Eric Knudsen is also sitting at my table. I thank him for coming over with me. We established a lot of very cool things at St. Ambrose. We actually had a 3+2 or combo program where in 5 years you were a nurse and athletic trainer. That is a pretty cool thing. We had one person that did it. So in 7 years you could be a nurse practitioner. That would have been pretty cool to see that play out. We had a tremendous group of individuals and people, a lot of high school athletic trainers, a few over at Augustana, but we had a great educational system. And I think to this date, we're still the first closed accredited athletic training program that actually had students that graduated. My final thank you. I have an incredible family. We have 2 fantastic kids that have achieved a tremendous amount in their young careers. They're fantastic human beings because of the amount of joy they take in what they achieve and when others around them achieve a lot. We often talk, and I've heard a lot of people say they sacrifice. I'm going to say, along with those sacrifices, we have also gained a lot as a family. So while we have given up a little bit, I appreciate Mark sharing with Jill being Adam at events. But our families have been able to be a part of a lot of very, very cool things. Athletics is kind of a cool environment to work in. Our people are relatively healthy. We may face death once in a while, but pretty infrequently. And it's not the normal medical, and we have unbelievable relationships. Finally, I want to thank Dr. Michelle West. You want to talk about a pillar and a captain and a stone. Our kids are fantastic young humans because of the strength and power that she has. I think moms are far more important than dads, and strong moms are far more important than strong dads. She is a strong woman. She is simply fantastic, and I appreciate her very, very much. If everyone had 5% of the goodness of Dr. Michelle West, the world would be a better place. We have wonderful kids and a great family because her #1 job has always been commitment to kids and family. Love you, Michelle, Taylor, and Austin. So, that's it. I'm done.